didn't anyone in the Albanese government tell Chris Bowen, the Energy and Climate Change Minister, shush, put a sock in it, Chris. Don't tell punters today of all days that you're going to make cars a luxury for the poor. I mean, what a clown show. The government is crowing about today's news poll. Look, we got away with a lie. We broke a promise to keep the stage 3 tax cuts. We instead robbed better off Australians of thousands of dollars to give a few, what was it, middle Australians $15 a week, something like that. And yesterday's news poll does show that nearly 2/3 of voters think that was actually good of the government to do this. But like I predicted, they like the cash. But also, like I predicted, they're not so keen on the liar who gave it to them. And that's why even after this tax break of billions of dollars in total, the government's polling exactly what it was before the Christmas break. It's still just ahead of the coalition, 52% to 48% after preferences. I find that astonishing. I reckon he must have been counting on a big bounce, but it's destroyed its credibility. It looked like a liar to stay exactly where it was. And we still haven't heard what the opposition will do, by the way. That's going to be decided in a leadership meeting tonight. And the Liberals could actually still trump Labor, you see. They could say, well, we'll keep those stage 3 tax cuts, that Labor promised before the election, but we'll match Labor's tax cuts, extra tax cuts to the less well off. Yes, it will cost the bomb. But the Liberals, by doing that, would also slash the bracket creep by having a flat tax between $45,000 and people on $200,000, instead of being like Labor, keeping in the middle a 37% tax rate that will rake in $28 billion more in bracket creep over the next decade as inflation and pay rises push millions of Australians into that higher bracket. So that would actually be real tax reform from the Liberals, right? But we'll see what it'll do. That said, Labor's pitch today is that, well, yes, we've not broken our promise. We've taken a different decision to help Australians with their cost of living.
Every taxpayer deserves a tax cut, and we're going to give it to them.
Now, that applause was from Labor politicians, by the way, not a grateful public. But then along came Chris Bowen to spoil Labor's party. You're going to have to save up that $15 a week extra from Labor because, boy, you're going to need it to pay a lot more for a new car now. Bowen, who's a real global warming zealot, is bringing in new emissions laws on new cars to force car companies to sell more electric cars and fewer of the cheaper petrol ones, especially Utes, that are the most popular cars in the market.
There are many, many efficient options that aren't available in Australia as well. Take the Mazda CX-30. The model available in the United Kingdom is 25% more fuel efficient than the model available here in Australia. So Australians are missing out on savings at the Bowser, regardless of what sort of car they choose. And of course, also Australian cars are emitting more into the environment and emitting more particulates and pollution, which is having an impact on the health of Australians as well.
Now, Bowen says he's not going to be banning any of the cheaper petrol cars that buyers actually want, but that's not exactly true, because these changes mean the car companies will have to do that. They can't sell too many petrol cars because they will then have an emissions limit put on their total sales of each category. Too many petrol cars means they're going to break it and have to pay extra to the government. So it's a clever scheme, right? But for many new car buyers, it means they won't actually be able to find all the cheaper petrol cars they actually want year in, year out. And that's where most electric cars cost so much more.
So when we look at the EV equivalents that are available right now, so one of our most popular Ute until last year, when the Ranger took it over, was the Hilux dual cab. You can get one of those for 52 grand. The equivalent EV Ute dual cab is a Chinese model at $94,000. So whilst you may not be paying fuel excise if you go to an electric model, your family still has to find an additional $40,000 to purchase that car.
Now, the crazy thing about Bowen's plan is that how much does it really help the planet anyway? Electric cars use electricity to come 2/3 from fossil fuels, and they take a lot more fossil fuels to actually make. And how much does it help buyers? Electric cars cost more, repairs cost more, insurance costs more, and their range is less. And can we even get all these electric cars? I mean, 90% of all new car sales by 2030.
It might be a challenge to actually produce vehicles that meet these stringent targets, especially as we go out beyond 26 and 27. The targets become very stringent, and the current car park that we sell, the cars we sold last year, certainly wouldn't meet it. So it's a question of whether we can bring that technology, and given that we are a relatively small portion of the world market, we're less than 1.5%, we're right-hand drive, it's going to be difficult to necessarily source those cars and bring them to Australia at a price point Australians can afford.
What, you mean this government might be forcing us to buy cars we can't actually get or afford? Surely they couldn't be that dumb, could they? Surely they could. What's more, it's pushing us to buy electric cars. Well, that seems idiotic when we're warned that we're already short of electricity. So as I say, the government gives with one hand and takes with the other. It gives $15 a week for cost of living with that one hand, and on that sneaky other, it makes new car buyers potentially pay thousands more.